Hello everyone, have a nice day. Today we're exploring Jack's desperate search for Tuttienne, a night that turns terrifying when a mysterious stranger helps Tuttienne survive in the mountains while Jack races toward a tip that feels almost too perfect. As Tuttienne fights fever and fear, she keeps calling Jack's name like it's the only thing keeping her alive. Meanwhile, Jack spreads flyers, questions everyone, and refuses to rest until one call sends him straight into danger. If you enjoy emotional cinematic stories with romance, suspense, and shocking twists, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. The night in the mountains didn't feel like silence. It felt like something watching. Tuttienne was curled beside a weak little fire, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. Her cheeks were flushed with fever, but her fingers were icy. Every breath scraped her throat like sand. A stranger knelt in front of her, an old woman with gray hair tied back tight, hands rough like tree bark, eyes sharp like she'd survived more winters than she could count. She held a cup of warm water to Tuttienne's lips. "Slowly," the woman murmured. "You drink too fast, you'll choke." Tuttienne managed a sip. Her eyes flooded instantly, not from the smoke, something deeper, something broken. I thought I was going to die out there," she whispered, voice thin as thread. The old woman didn't panic. She touched 2 fingers to Tuttienne's wrist, checking her pulse with calm certainty. "Your body is fighting," she said, "but you're too weak to walk tonight." Tuttienne's lips trembled. One name pushed out like a prayer she couldn't swallow. "Jack." The old woman's gaze narrowed, not cruel, just assessing. "Your man?" Tuttienne nodded, ashamed of how helpless she sounded. "He'll be looking for me. He won't stop." The old woman fed the fire another piece of wood. The flames lifted and threw light across Tuttienne's face, pale, bruised by fear. "Then we keep you alive," the woman said simply, "until he can find you." Outside, the wind rattled the trees like warning whispers. Earlier that day, Jack was in a copy shop that smelled like hot ink and cheap paper. The printer spit out pages with a dry, impatient scrape like time itself grinding its teeth. Jack stood at the counter, shoulders tight, eyes hollow, staring at Tuttienne's photo on the screen as if staring could pull her back into the world. 30 copies, he said, voice rough. "Big photo, big phone number." The owner glanced up. "Looking for a family?" Jack's jaw clenched like that word hurt. Then he forced it out. "My girlfriend. She's been missing for days." "You report it?" "Yes." Jack swallowed hard. "Police, hospitals, bus stations. I ran everywhere. Nothing." The first flyer slid out, finding a loved one Tuttienne's face beneath it, and his phone number like a lifeline. For 1 second, Jack couldn't breathe. He paid by transfer. The confirmation beep sounded cruelly normal, like the world didn't care his life was splitting in half. Outside, he moved fast, too fast, taping flyers to poles near the old accident site, then shop walls, then the market's rusted board. Each time he smoothed the paper flat, he whispered like the air might carry it to her. "Please, please." A vegetable seller studied the photo. "Try the big market. People come from everywhere." Jack nodded, voice cracking. "If you see her, call me, anytime." Stall to stall, the same sentence, the same desperate smile that wasn't really a smile. Then a young woman hesitated with the flyer in her hand. Someone said, "You're scamming?" Jack froze. The words hit like a slap. "I'm not," he forced out, throat burning. "I'm searching for the person I love." Her face softened, guilt rising. "I'm sorry, I didn't." Jack turned away before his anger turned into something uglier. He couldn't afford to break, not now. At a tea stall, an older man poured him iced tea without asking. "You look like you haven't slept." Jack's laugh was hollow. "If I sleep, I'm scared I'll wake up and it'll be too late." The man tapped the table gently. "You can't carry blame and search at the same time. One will drown you." "I'm already drowning," Jack whispered. "Then grab a rope," the man said. "Anyone who offers help, grab it." Hope flickered thin as paper, but real. That afternoon, behind the market stalls, a woman watched Jack from the shadows. She stared at Tuttienne's photo on the flyer like it was a verdict. "If he finds her," she whispered, "we're finished." Her hand shot out. She tore the flyer down, ripped it clean, then raised her voice at a nearby seller, performing outrage. "This man is a liar. Don't call that number. He's tricking people." And when she walked away, she texted with shaking fingers, "He's taking the bait. Tell him Nam Po tonight." Night fell fast. Jack's phone buzzed. Unknown number. His heart slammed so hard it hurt. "Hello?" A woman's voice rushed through, secretive. "If you're really looking for Tuttienne, people saw a girl like her near Nam Po tonight. Go now before she disappears again." The line went dead. Jack stood so fast his chair scraped. His eyes went bright and wild, hope tangled with terror. He grabbed his jacket, the remaining flyers, and ran straight into the dark, not seeing the trap already tightening around his path. Jack drove with one hand on the wheel and the other crushing his phone like it was a beating heart. The road to Nam Po was a thin, twisting ribbon, no streetlights, no houses, only trees pressing in like they wanted to swallow the headlights. His mind replayed the call again and again. People saw a girl like her tonight. Go now. It sounded like hope, but it landed in his chest like a warning. He passed a rusted sign half buried in weeds. The letters were faded, but he could still make out a word that tightened his skin. Quarry. Jack slowed. The air here felt wrong, too open, too empty, as if the forest was holding its breath. He parked near a collapsed barrier and stepped out. Gravel crunched under his boots, loud in the silence. He lifted his voice into the dark. "Tuttienne!" Only an echo returned, thin and cruel. He took a few steps forward, scanning the shadows for any movement, any sign of cloth, hair, a hand, a sharp crunch behind him. Jack spun. 3 men stepped out like they'd been carved from the knighthood's low, shoulders relaxed, smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They walked slowly, unhurried, as if Jack was already caught. "Are you Jack?" one asked, voice almost bored. Jack's throat went dry. "Where is she?" The second man raised a phone and flashed Tuttienne's picture, his flyer photo bright against the darkness. Jack's stomach dropped. "You're loud," the first man said. "Posters, questions, police. You're making people nervous." Jack stepped forward, fury and fear mixing into something dangerous. "If you touched her," the third man shoved him hard. Jack stumbled back, boots skidding on loose gravel. For half a second, he felt the empty space behind him at the edge of the quarry, and his blood turned to ice. "Careful," the third man murmured, amused. "One wrong step, and you disappear too." Jack steadied himself, chest heaving. "Why are you doing this?" The first man shrugged like it was nothing. "Because you keep digging." Jack's jaw clenched. "I'm not leaving without her." That was the moment the trap snapped shut. One of them struck his wrist. His phone flew from his hand and hit the ground. Another fist slammed into his ribs. Pain exploded white behind Jack's eyes. He fought back wild, desperate. It was 3 against 1, and they weren't trying to win. They were trying to break him. A boot pinned his hand. Fingers grabbed his collar and yanked him forward until he tasted blood. "This is your warning," the first man said near his ear. "Stop searching." Jack coughed, shaking, but his eyes stayed hard. "Go to hell." The reply was a blow to his temple. The world tilted. Headlights blurred into streaks. Voices stretched like rubber. Then darkness. Somewhere else in that same night, Tuttienne woke with a sharp gasp, as if her body had heard Jack's pain from miles away. The old woman was already beside her, palm pressing Tuttienne's forehead. "Fever's still high," the woman muttered. Tuttienne tried to sit up, panic rising. "Jack, he's coming. I told you he won't stop." "I know," the old woman said, and her voice had changed. It wasn't just kindness now. It was urgent. Tuttienne's eyes filled. "They'll hurt him. They'll—" "Hush!" The woman tightened the blanket around her. "Listen to me. Those people didn't lead him to you. They led him away." Tuttienne froze, realization cracking through the fever like lightning. "No, no, Jack." The old woman reached into her bag and pulled out something Tuttienne hadn't noticed earlier. A torn piece of paper, smoothed flat. A ripped flyer corner. Tuttienne's own face. "They're tearing these down," the woman said quietly, "which means they're scared." Tuttienne's breath stuttered. "Then we have to move. Now." The old woman nodded once. No hesitation. She slung a small bag over her shoulder, then surprisingly strong lifted Tuttienne up as if she weighed nothing. "Tonight," she whispered, stepping into the black trees, "we don't wait for morning." Because now she understood the truth. Jack wasn't just searching. Jack was being hunted. And if they didn't move first, the trap would close for good.
Tự tiên gục ngã trên núi sốt cao khi một bà lão tìm thấy và giữ cho cô sống qua đêm. Yếu ớt nhưng kiên quyết, Tự tiên cầu xin được gặp Jack, sợ hãi rằng anh sẽ không bao giờ ngừng tìm kiếm. Ở thị trấn, Jack in tờ rơi dán khắp nơi và hỏi những người bán gần khu vực xảy ra tai nạn và chợ, bám víu vào một niềm hy vọng mong manh. Từ trong bóng tối, ai đó xé những tấm áp phích của anh và tung tin đồn thất thiệt, sau đó gửi cho Jack một cuộc gọi bí mật chỉ dẫn anh đến nặm bò vào ban đêm. Jack vội vàng đến đó một mình, chỉ để 3 người đàn ông phục kích, cảnh báo ngừng đào bới và đánh anh bất tỉnh gần một mỏ đá. Cùng lúc đó, Tử Tiên tỉnh dậy trong hoảng sợ, nhận ra đó là một cái bẫy. Bà lão đưa cho một tờ rơi bị xé và khăng khăng rằng họ phải di chuyển lập tức vì Jack không còn chỉ đang tìm kiếm nữa, anh đang bị săn đuổi.